Live right now.
Oh,
We're live.
okay.
Okay, hey, hello everybody. Argo Visa here today. We're excited to be joined by Chris Richardson, our co-founder, very esteemed immigration attorney and former consular officer. Chris, do you mind by starting by just introducing yourself to our audience here today?
Sure. My name is Chris Richardson. I'm the president and general counsel of BDB Solutions. Before that, I was an immigration attorney. I've been in immigration space for about 15 years now, both in government and at law firms and at BDB as well. But I was also with the State Department for almost a decade as a consular officer. So I was a visa officer, the guy who did all the visa interviews. I served in Nigeria, Nicaragua, Pakistan, Spain, did all types of visas. And I also worked, I work with members of Congress. I work with both the Trump administration and the Biden administration advising on immigration issues. And at BDB, we're really well connected to Washington. So we have our thumb on the pulse of what's going on in DC. And so that's something we've always cultivated here at BDB. So yeah, that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome. A few just quick housekeeping things. If anyone wants to comment and share where they are based right now, we'd love to hear that. But also, this conversation is going to be focused on the new administration, how that impacts visa processing, hearing Chris's expertise on this situation. As he mentioned, he has experience working with both the Trump administration, but also the former Biden administration. So that's going to be our focus today. If you have personal questions about your personal visa interview situation, in that case, please just send us an email at hello@argovisa.com. We can work with you there to figure out if a consultation would be right for you. But for the purposes of this, we're focusing on kind of the big picture and the major change we're experiencing here in the U.S. with the new president. So, Chris, the first thing I would love to get your explanation on is how do changes at the executive level with the new administration impact agencies such as the State Department, and then how does that even trickle down to a consular officer making decisions with any change in administration, not just this one?
Right. And so, Davis, it's interesting that before the Trump administration, the first one, most of immigration really was pretty steady at the consular officer level. Like when we switched from George W. Bush to Obama, on the consular level, you really didn't see much in the way of change. President Trump really has a huge focus on legal immigration and the undocumented community. And so you do see a big shift. And so when the first Trump administration came in, he put out a bunch of executive orders that directly impacted consular officers. There was the Muslim ban that was pretty immediate. And then there was the public charge. And so a president has the ability to say, hey, consular officers, I want you to go in this direction or that direction. And as diplomats and people in the State Department, we have to oblige by that. What's been interesting about this administration is that we haven't really seen that on the consular officer level, that you haven't really seen like the Muslim ban instantaneously or the public charge instantaneously, but more of like, hey, go out and study this stuff, so maybe we'll do it later on. And so presidents do have that ability to have a tremendous impact on consular officers by making policies that make us act a lot more. But at the end of the day, consular officers still have their independence to issue visas. They still follow what the law says as outlined by the Immigration and Nationality Act.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that we have laws that are passed by Congress from the Immigration and Nationality Act, and then there's the executive components. And before jumping into the other things we talked about, Chris, this question does particularly kind of address that. I mean, can Trump just say no visas can be issued, or can an F1 visa in particular be just declared as unissuable during this time? Like, is that possible? How does that kind of work?
No. Presidents don't have the authority unless you have like a true national emergency, right? Unless you have like a COVID, for example. No president is going to issue an executive order just saying no more EB3s or no more F1s. Like those things are written into the law. And so a president actually has to issue that. And even on something like the refugees, like President Trump has attempted to put a pause on all refugees. It's very unlikely he's going to be able to do that because even refugees are written into the law. And so even if, let's say, President Trump were to do something like that, you would see immediate pushback, lawsuits, and probably a pretty fast temporary stay and eventual overturn of anything that tried to stop like F1 student visa holders or different types of visa holders from getting their visas.
Okay, that's super helpful. And with your first question, you kind of touched on, we expected maybe there would be some version of the Muslim ban or public charge coming back, but that hasn't been the case. Yet there has been one executive order, which you can search if you guys are interested by searching protecting the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. Chris, can you break down what this means, what visa applicants should expect with this? What does that really mean?
What it means basically is that if you're a visa applicant, you're probably going to have a little bit more vetting, that eventually they're going to come across, they're going to make up a policy, just like they did when they were in the administration the last time, or they were in charge the last time, where they're going to focus on a little bit more like internal vetting by consular officers. And so, they might check your social media pages. They might check your history a little bit more. They might do a little bit more digging. And so if anything, if you want to study in America, you should definitely do that, but you should expect a little bit more questioning. But if you're a qualified visa applicant, if you are qualified to be a student, it's important that you know that that's still something that can happen. It's just that you're going to have more questions from the consular officer. And that's why you need to be prepared by a service such as Argo.
Got it. So essentially right now, what this means is that applicants in the future can expect a potential for increased vetting during the consular journey, correct, Chris?
Correct. Absolutely.
Great. And as of now, there is no repeated version of the Muslim ban. Do you predict that's going to come back in some way, or what that might look like?
It's interesting that President Trump didn't do that out the gate, because he had promised he would. During the campaign, he said, hey, I'm bringing back the Muslim ban. And certainly the Supreme Court upheld it in Trump v. Hawaii. So he has the ability to do it. But I think that I hear that there are things politically going on that's going to temper that. I assume that Iran will be on it, but I'm not actually sure anymore. I think that President Trump is a very transactional figure. The Muslim vote, a majority or close to a majority voted for him, which is a huge change. And so I think that he is probably being a little bit more, to the extent that he can be, circumspect on how far and how wide he wants to go with a lot of these bans. But also, you have people like Elon Musk and others who are in his ear and are having a outsized role in picking his legal immigration team. And then the person who was the architect for a lot of this stuff, Stephen Miller, is really busy on the deportation stuff, the grant stuff, the DEI stuff. And so it's interesting that, when Trump first got elected, Stephen Miller was really in charge of immigration, legal immigration, and he really did go for that shock and awe factor. What's going on in America right now is that a lot of the shock and awe that's Stephen Miller's kind of stuff is being aimed at this other stuff. Legal immigration is being kind of left alone. F1 student visas are being left alone. Those things are really being left to the purview of people like Elon Musk so far. And so I think what we're all seeing right now is that at least on that side, there isn't as much shock and awe factor, and there may not be any shock and awe factor, right? It's possible that there might be a Muslim ban that comes back in 60 days. It might be just targeted at one or two countries, and it might have a pretty big opening for people to get through it. And so I think that but all the more reason, if there is one that comes back, and if you are from those countries that were on the list last time, you should apply and get your visa now, right? You should be applying 100% to get the visa right now, so that if it were to happen, they're not going to take away the visa that that you already have potentially.
That makes sense. So would you say that right now, when it comes to kind of immigration policies, the administration's more focused on kind of the undocumented community and the border rather than the legal immigration processes?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
I think that we're seeing a lot more on the undocumented population, a lot more focus on that population than on other populations.
Okay. Understood. You kind of almost alluded to this a second ago, is that there sometimes, things could change or happen overnight. And we actually did see that this week with the embassy in Bogota no longer issuing visas due to a political situation. Chris,
Mhm.
could you touch on this a little bit? Like, what kind of risk is this to other visa applicants? What would be kind of the lessons that a visa applicant should take away from what's happened?
But that happened on a weekend and then it was over, right? And
Yeah,
so I think that we're all going to have to expect the unexpected. We're going to have to just be prepared for unpredictable moments and situations. But I think ultimately it's in everybody's interest that visas be issued. It's in everybody's interest that coffee gets to America. Um, I think that President Trump very much likes to play this part of, I'm going to, make these things happen and shake things up. And people always find a way around it. And so I think that there's a lot of nervousness among immigrants, especially from what happened last time. But I do think, though, that President Trump this time around is seemingly, you know, I don't imagine, like, let's say he does a 25% tariff on Mexico. That's going to be devastating for our economy. So I think a lot of this stuff is just talk. And I think that when I actually see something and we actually all see it, then that's something we should be worried about. But I think that you control what you can control, right? And right now, anyone can apply for a visa. Anyone can go out there and get their student visa, their tourist visa. Anybody can travel with that visa. So while we have those things and we know those things and those things are in our control, this is the perfect time to go ahead and apply for your visa and not wait
yeah.
until, not trying to wait for something that there's no way we're going to be able to predict.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And really, bringing it all home by making sure you get it right on this time when you have the opportunity, and working with someone like Argo to help you or guide you to optimize each visa interview chance from there. Because one thing, Chris, that's also been discussed would be, what's going to happen with any sort of potential layoffs proposed by the Department of Government Efficiency. Like, do you think that we'll see an impact on visa wait times with some of the conversations surrounding a thinning of government employees?
Yes and no. I think in the short term, the immediate short term, yes. I think you're going to see wait times both at the State Department level and at all government levels probably increase. But in the immediate term, like maybe especially toward the end of the year, I think that there's actually going to be a push for more efficiency, right? And so during the last Trump administration, you saw a skyrocketing in wait times, but not a lot of like push on the tech side or virtual interviews or finding other ways around it. I think that you're going to see a bigger push. Like, I don't think visa interviews are going to go away, unfortunately, but I do, or fortunately, I think that that's like, visa interviews are a good way to gauge. Maybe there can be ways to change that up. But what I do think is you're going to see a lot more innovation. I think you're going to see a lot more push by the federal government to say, hey, do we have to have all these people coming into this office, or can we do a virtual interview? Can we do different types of interviewing so that we make sure, and ultimately people have to remember that the people who are applying for these visas are people like people who work for Elon Musk's company, people who work for Facebook, people who work for Google, right? Like, these are the people being delayed in the process, right? And I think that there's a sense that that's not necessarily going to happen. Yeah, they'll cut budgets, but I do think, though, that if the interview wait times get too bad, that the businesses in America will have an uproar, and those people have the ear of the current Trump administration in a way they didn't in 2016 to 2021.
Got it. That's super helpful context. And we've gone through almost most of the main topics here. If you guys have questions, again, specifically about this administration and how that will impact your visa journey, you can add a comment. I see a handful of comments about specific visa types. Is there any change to X visa type? Chris, you kind of touched on it before, but has there been any specific changes to any visa types thus far? And should people be nervous about that?
No, there hasn't been any, like, I mean, with the specific visa types, no. Most of the focus has been on refugees, humanitarian parolees. In the future, there might be in 60 days, but we just don't know. And I don't think the Trump administration knows either, right? I think that there's a lot of internal battles going on. I know that there's a lot of internal battles going on within the administration itself, and they're debating among the hardliners versus the not hardliners on what it is that they want to do. For me, the biggest tell is the fact that there was no Muslim ban out the gate, that there was no public charge out the gate, that a lot of the stuff that we saw the first time around, we just haven't seen it this time. And maybe that's him being more cautious, but since when is President Trump ever cautious, right? Like, that's not his MO. Like, he's not cautious about anything. He does and says whatever he wants, right? And the fact that he didn't do that is an incredible sign that, maybe the people who are supportive of these types of visas are actually on the winning side of this argument this time around. Or maybe the people who were the architects of the hard line the last time are busy doing other stuff, which I think is really what's going on here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and is super helpful. One thing you just mentioned was the 60 days time frame. Can you explain what that means and what they're doing for the next 60 days in terms of visas?
Sure. So what President Trump said was, hey, or the executive order said is, hey, State Department, Department of Labor, Department of Homeland Security, I want you to go back and look at all of your vetting processes. Go look at all the countries out there and let us know if there's any country or visa or anything out there that we need to question, or that we need advice on, or we need to limit. And that's interesting because so basically in 60 days, something's going to happen, but we don't know. And maybe I don't think they know either what they're going to do in 60 days. But I also know that, President, Elon Musk was allegedly talking to the Iranian government, and the Iranian government was talking back channel to President Trump's administration. President Trump ultimately loves making deals. And if he can make a deal with Iran, like he would see himself as a hero, right? And so I do think that from his perspective and his administration's perspective, that this stuff isn't as clear cut as it used to be, or certainly not as easy to just be like, no, I don't want that country, or no, I don't want to do this. It's, the thing about Colombia and Honduras and these other places, the ability to threaten and the ability to use that threat is very, very powerful. But once you've used the threat and you've done it, where's your leverage, right? And President Trump ultimately is a businessman, and he understands that. So if he's trying to get a deal with Iran, he's trying to get a deal with Colombia, he's trying to get a deal with Honduras, he's trying to get deals done, threatening to take away visa processes, threatening to take away and do all these other things, threatening tariffs. That threat in and of itself might push for the kind of behaviors and things that he wants, as opposed to just doing it. And him doing it means he doesn't have any more leverage to do stuff in the future. And so I think that in 60 days, something will happen. I right now would suggest that it probably won't be as severe as of today. I say that, right? Call me back in in a month, Davis, and then we'll talk more. But I would say right now, from what I'm hearing, I don't think things are going to be as bad yet as we probably think it will be on the legal immigration side.
Yeah, that's good to know. And if anything, when anything we hear in 60 days, we'll be back to share with you all. So don't worry. And I think you brought up some good points, Chris, just about some of the focus on making deals, business, the impact of some of the major technology companies that wasn't there in the first administration, all kind of play into this. So as we wrap up this quick update, is there anything else, you want to share with applicants right now who are stressed, wondering, should they just abandon their U.S. visa processes and try to go elsewhere? Should they keep on going? Anything that you would kind of advise for somebody that's thinking about this journey right now, or
So,
whatever may happen in the future?
I've been at BDV now for 6 years. And the thing I said on my first day is the thing I'm going to say today, and I'll say on my last day, is that it's never too early to apply for a visa. If you sit there and wait for a better time to apply for a visa, you're always going to find yourself like on the bad end of things. Not the bad end, but certainly the slower end of things, right? We just have no idea what's going to happen, and you can't base your life on what might happen or might not happen. If you want to study in America, go study in America. If you want to, come here and visit Disney World, then come here and visit Disney World. These things matter to President Trump. They matter to all of us as Americans. I think this is still like a great country to visit. It's a great country to study. I think that we're still a beacon of hope and light in the world. And that has not changed, irrespective of who's in the White House. And so my advice is always the advice I always give is apply for that visa. Come over here, study, work, travel, do whatever you got to do. But don't live your life thinking, well, if I wait 6 more months, it'll be more clear. If I wait 8 more months, it's going to be more clear. There ain't nothing going to be more clear. This is President Trump. He lives and loves that ability to shock and awe and throw wrenches in and do all sorts of things, right? And so today it's like something, and then tomorrow it'll be something else. Colombia's been blocked. Tomorrow it'll be Nicaragua. Tomorrow it'll be Nigeria. I have no idea. None of us do. And so, but what you do know is things you can control, and you can control your ability to apply for a visa right now. So that would be my big takeaway from just this administration or anybody that gets elected president.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, I'm sure that applies to other things in life too, not just the visa. Yeah. So good for everybody to take away, the best day is today, because that's what, we know that we're kind of guaranteed. So appreciate your time, Chris. Like I said at the beginning, if you all have individual personal questions about your situation, if you've been refused, if you are nervous about getting refused, send us an email at hello@argovisa.com. We can help you out. We can help you figure out if a consultation would help resolve what you're looking for in this time. And really, like Chris said, just make sure that you're prepared and for your interview and get it right to avoid future problems. And we're here to help and be a resource throughout, again, the past administration, the current administration. That doesn't change our kind of dedication to helping visa applicants navigate the journey. And there'll always be complications in immigration. There'll always be different voices, different opinions. And so that's just something that we know is also kind of a guarantee of immigration, that it's not easy, that it's complicated, and we're here to support you. So thanks, Chris, for your time today. We're glad to have you. And should anything, other updates that impact visa applicants and Argo clients in 60 days, we'll be back to share those details with you all. So thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.